Okay, I hope this thing is fine. Unfortunately, it's something that I can't help. I'm under power shading, whatever you call it. And so it's disconnecting because of that. If it fails, don't worry, we'll do it tomorrow. But as I stated, I wanted us to explain biblically on the viewpoint of should we be looking suspiciously at celebrities coming and saying that they are saved. Ne? And so remember, if it cuts me off, don't worry, I'll do the video tomorrow. Maybe the network will be stable. Right now, power shading is not helping. And so, should we? Should we be doubting? Should we be questioning and whatnot? Because a lot of Christians go there first, but I want to show you two verses that tell us what we should do. Okay? And then we can talk about what they should do. Okay? So there's both sides. What we should do or think biblically when people say they are saved, not just celebrities. Okay? And so I'm just going to get straight into it. Let's use the example of Kanye West first. Right? First, let's use the example of Kanye West. The question we should ask, is Kanye West saved? Is he saved? Is the brother saved? Now, with Kanye West, we don't know what is going on over there because the man has that situation up there. And we are very clear that people that have that situation up there, because of mental development and all that type, I don't know what you call it. There is an area where theologians tend to lean on the subject matters of how a God makes a judgment over them as he would to a child. Okay? That's an entire debate. They have not even entered that area. Okay? That's why even the law acknowledges a mental health issue when it comes to crimes and violence and all those type of things. Okay? For example, a classic example is a person by the name of David Wood. David Wood is a Christian apologist, but he suffers from what you call it, psychopathic what. It's this thing where a person does not share the emotions of others. He doesn't have sympathy. The way you would put it. Altemba, how are you? Wonderful to see you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't worry, we won't be long. Ne? At least my network cuts me. So, because of this issue of, what do you call it, man? So when a person does not have, does not share in people's emotions, so basically he doesn't have sympathy. It's a situation, it's a health situation. But there are people like that who do not share in the thing. And David Wood has explained his testimony. He has talked about it, He almost killed his father because he suffered from that thing. And he explained how is a person who's a Christian, how can a person be a Christian when they are that? And he explained what people have misunderstood about love, which is what I absolutely love about his broadcast. He's married, he has kids, and his kids are disabled. And so he would explain, how do you think I'm able to love a child when I have this situation where I can't sympathize with the child? I can't sympathize with the difficulties that a child might be having. And he explains, it's basically I have to understand, or I have to teach myself what would be good for the child. And so, you should watch his testimony. David Wood, just look for David Wood testimony, and it will explain for you what I'm talking about. And so, there's that whole jazz over there. And so, with Kanye West, was he saved? If you go back and you listen to the message that he says when he was on the Big Boy interview, that's the best example of whether Kanye West is saved or not. But what we get from that interview is whether he understood the gospel. You see that? That's the highlight. Did Kanye West have the true gospel? When he started, yes. You can hear he has unconditional love well understood. He perfectly gets it. He gets grace. He perfectly gets it. He gets salvation without works. He gets it, which is what Romans talks about the entire way. He understands where works come in. When James says, works without faith without works is dead. He understands what it meant. It meant that the works come after a person is saved, because that's now the outflow of life. You're cleaning the outside and clean the inside. So the inside will influence the out, right? And so it was very clear when you go and watch the Big Boy interview that Kanye West did. He understood the gospel. So that's the first thing that we need to clarify on whether we know whether they are saved or not. But then how do we know if they... So that's how we know if a person understood the gospel. That's all we know. Whether they are saved, that's another thing. So we know they understood the gospel on the basis of what they believed. And so with Kanye, we know he had heard the right message. Unfortunately, Kanye West then clouded his judgment on faith by listening to ridiculous people and conspirators. So he started listening to wrong messages. He started listening to people like the Hebrew rights movement. You know those people, we are Jews, black people are Jews. Nonsense, just bunch of nonsense. So he clouded himself believing in those things. Then he started talking about white people being evil, whatnot. Why? Because that's the teachings that come from those teachings of black people are the real Hebrew Israelites and what. And so unfortunately, he clouded his teaching on salvation. Now, there is a verse that I want us to start by on whether we will know. Okay, so bear in mind what I just said. We don't know if a person is truly saved on the basis of what they have heard. What we know from what they have heard is that they heard the true message. That's all. That's what we know from on the basis of that. Okay, and so and also remember, that's why in the book of Acts there is that question, on what did you believe? That's what some of the disciples asked, and they said, no, we believed in the repentance of John the Baptist. And so then they have to bring in the message of the Holy Spirit and everything so that they can perfectly understand what does it mean. Even the Ethiopian eunuch, he is then narrated to what was the purpose of the old and where does it come in with the new. Who is the writer speaking about in the book of Isaiah when he says, and then Philip breaks it down. So we know that if you want a reference for what I'm saying, Ricky, it's not biblical. What I'm saying, that's where you get it. You get it from when you look at the book of Acts and how they ministered the gospel. From that you deduce, how do we know if a person had the right gospel? Because they literally listen to what they said and then they break down what they're supposed to believe. And then you have 1 Corinthians 15, which breaks down. This is the gospel which you have, which you stand therein. So it tells you what a person must believe. So on the basis of a person coming out and saying, I believe in Jesus, you don't know whether they are saved. Okay? Clear. So we don't have right. Let me say it here now and today and tomorrow I'll say it and I'll repeat it. We have absolutely no right to come out and say, no, that one I don't believe is saved. You don't have ground biblically. You can tell me what ground. Me, I'm telling you biblically. What's there? On first thing we test, we are told to test, it's what they believed. Right. Now that we are clear on what they've believed, you see Paul doing that. You see Paul, he says, okay, what shall I do to be saved? And then they tell him what the gospel is. Okay. And so that's another example of it there. So in the book of Acts, that's where you see the interactions of what people are supposed to believe. according to the gospel. Then they questioned the subject matters of the law. They had to go to Jerusalem to debate the matter and say, these laws are not a reflection of the gospel as a whole. They were a message that was sent to the Jews so that they can portray the message of the gospel. But unfortunately, they failed in it. They say we can't put a burden over them, which we ourselves have failed. And then Hebrews then explains further and says what? A better has come. So now we know where to put the law or deeds. Remember, the law was mainly an instruction manual to instruct the body. The law instructs the body, not the spirit man. The law doesn't instruct the spirit man. It doesn't. That's why what the law says, let me prove it biblically. Ne? Yes, we don't just say that Bible. He says, oh, the law has said, do not covet that, then do not, thou shalt not commit adultery. I say, if you have lusted. So that's what tells you that the law does not instruct the spirit man. The law only instructs the physical body. Don't do this. But according to a person who is maturely growing spiritual, they will understand that the law is it's a low stature to what we were brought to. Yeah, when you hear people talking about, this Adventist, you are obsessing about the wrong thing. Yeah, they must keep the 10 Commandments. You are obsessing about the wrong thing. The law, it's too low of a standard. A Christian is brought to a higher dimension of obedience. He says it's not just the deed you must be worried. You must be worried if the deed has been done in the heart. That's higher than what the law says. So relax over that. It's baby Christianity stuff. That one but that's a topic of a different day. When people obsess about the law, no, they must do the law. They don't understand. It's too low. Why do you want to instruct me on something it's too low? Why? Because I've been brought to a spiritual dimension of obedience. That's why when you read Romans, he talks about when you read Romans, he talks about there is a law that instructs my members. Read the Bible. Read it. You'll see it. Okay? He says there's a law that instructs my members. But then there is a law of Christ. Which one is that one? That's all in Romans. But so what I'm trying to show you there is that we don't know. We don't know if a person is saved because the first thing that we know is that whether they have believed the right thing. Koketo, go watch other charlatans. I don't know, why are you here? Okay? Yes, why are you here? Help yourself and go watch something else. Go watch cat videos. There are cat videos online, okay, my brother? Yes, don't save yourself being bitter about us. Okay? Yes, we've been doing apologetics for a minute. Wena hamba uyobukela ama video wakabani bani lena. Go watch people that agree with you. We don't have time for that. And so that's the first thing we know. We know what they have believed, and we can test what they have believed, but we don't know if they believed it. Okay? Yes. But there is a verse that tells us how we will know whether they believed it. People create ideas around things that are not even there in the Bible. Okay? And so, first verse, 1 John chapter number 2, verse number 19. Those ones who are here to oppose, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that at the moment. If you have questions, yes, we'll take those. But if you are here to just debate, I don't have time for that. No? I don't have time for that. Because we get hindered by people who are deceived. You have not, this entire week, you have not even touched your Bible. You are here to debate Bible. My brother, go back. Go back. 1 John chapter, now please note these verses, ne? 1 John chapter number 2, verse number 19. It says, they went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been for us, they would have no doubt remained with us, that it might be made manifest that they were not of us. That is the verse that literally tells you how you will know a person is saved. Ukuhamba wabo, they will leave. Let me tell you, Christianity is not easy. This thing is not easy. It's not easy. It will kick you out. Uzos keep. So please, desist from this behavior of questioning whether people are saved. We don't know whether they are saved. There is the only thing that we will have which will tell us whether they are saved. It's when they leave. Sugani lapo. Nyankuza. I give you verses. I respect you enough to give you verses. I don't talk nonsense out of things. If I say something, I'll back it by the scripture. Okay? Not as a way of kind of just hiding. Not hiding. I'm literally answering so that you will know where does my faith come from. So you can go back, read the verses, and then you yourself formulate your ideas around it. We do not know whether a person, this thing of say people, when the Bible says test the spirit, it's about doctrine. When you are being taught doctrine, you test the spirit. You don't test the spirit about people's salvation. It's not in the Bible, that one. That one of you are testing people's spirits on whether they are saved. Unamanga. How? Where is that one? Where do you see it? Where we told our Pile? You see, we will only know that they are not saved. Okay, now someone brought up a very interesting verse. By their fruits we shall know them. Remember, there is two fruits. That's a different subject. There is two fruit. There is fruit of a believer. There is fruit of unbelief. So there is the fruit that you see in Galatians. There is the fruit that you see in the Gospels. Okay? And so, izenzo zabo, the deeds that a person does, doesn't tell you whether they are... Hey, that's the part that people don't like. Bazalwane, we are not here to dictate salvation. Ne? Let's be very clear. We are here to dispel. There are people, of course, who have clear agendas when they supposedly claim to be saved. I'll give you another example of what I'm just saying now. You remember the guy that said he was from Cape Town who was the head of the Church of Satan? Remember that guy? He came out, he said he was saved. Wakuluma, he went on podcasts, he said all kinds of things. Okay, fine, no problem. Actually, when he spoke on his video, he saw Jesus. Oh, we said, wow, wonderful. That's what we are supposed to do. We receive. There is no anybody that says they are saved. We receive. Why? Because our reflection of love is capable of keeping them until they get grounded. Some of them will find out that they will not really believe in the true gospel. Then they get rooted. That's why you will hear of people that were masquerading themselves as Christians until they go to a certain church, and then when they were taught, they realized, so that guy, he said he was saved. We believed. We thought, oh, wow, wonderful. Then there were people that were saying, be careful, be careful. No, you are careful about everything, about everyone. Yes, the Bible does tell us to be careful. But when a person comes amongst us and says they are saved, we receive them. When they see the body, the structure of the body and the capability of us receiving them, if they were here to deceive us, they might be rooted. We receive them wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. That can convict a person. Yes. It can convict a person. Love can convict. You know that, right? You see it when Paul talks about married couples and one thingy and what, all that stuff. When he talks about that, it's a clear indication that love can convict the other person to be thingy. And so that guy then started doing podcasts. Then that's when we knew, there's an agenda here. My brother, you came from Satanism and now you are starting to teach. And if you remember the things that he was teaching, he was teaching ascended masters. We said, no. my brother, you were not a part of us. That's when you know a person is not saved. So we know whether a person has believed the true gospel by assessing the teaching they have heard. And so the examples I gave earlier on, they highlight that. So 1 John chapter number 2, verse 19, then tells us how will we know whether they were saved. He says only when they live. Because the Bible is hard. And if you are not a true believer, I'm telling you, you are not the true. The ones who are not true believers, they leave. That's how you will know. Now, because a person is amongst us and they are doing wrong, it doesn't mean they are not saved. Where do you see that? John. So please remember that verse, ne? 1 John chapter number 2, verse 19. It tells us what they were. They went out from among us, but they were not of us. This is why they left, so that it may be made. He uses this particular word, that it may be made manifest that they were not of us. Note that part there. And so that verse there tells us how the only way we will know they were not a part of us. Now, remember, when some people, when they start talking about what they teach about salvation, that's when you know they have not believed the truth. Okay? So there is that also to make a judgment on. When you hear what they teach, don't allow, and also I just want to also warn, don't allow conspiracy theorists to dictate your engagement of love. Don't do that. Don't do it. Okay? I was one of those people, if you watch my channel, I was very harsh on that particular subject. Yeah, every celebrity, they are cultists, they are what. Love, embrace, can convict. Because where they are, all they know is judgment. You do wrong, Satan punishes. He doesn't play that side. I'm being young, when you do the wrong thing, back shy. There is no forgiveness, there is no we are shower. And so when you embrace, that can bring them. And so we mustn't allow the world to dictate, because all these conspiracy theories, a person raises a finger, they are cultists, they do this. Okay, fine, they might be true in doing that. We saw Maweni talking about all those things and whatnot. Whether she is or she's not, we don't know. But she uses those things so that we keep her away. You keep her at bay. But you do not allow that to dictate your portrayal of love. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, we must be very careful about that. That's why he questions love. He says, when I come, will I find love? Be careful of letting the world dictate your scale of love. I remember a certain video. Let me not mention that one. It's a different topic altogether. But, so that's the first verse. Ne? Now, when I said, you will notice that I said, there are people that are amongst Christians who have wrong behavior. And the behavior, we keep correcting the behavior. Okay? It doesn't say they are not saved. What it says is that they are not a disciple. Being a believer and being a disciple are two different things. You can believe this message, go to be with us. I've given this example and I've said before, why is God wiping away their tears after the 1,000 years we spent with Messiah? It's because kuzoba nabazalwane who are worth nothing. That's biblical. Biblical. This is, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, it's not only for unbelievers. There are believers that will be weeping and gnashing. That's why he's wiping. You think he's wiping away the tears of those that are in hell? Correction band. Correction band. The people that are weeping and gnashing are weeping in the kingdom. 1,000 years with Messiah. Good luck with that. Good luck. Why? Because they did not live a life that was reflective of the kingdom. So 1 Corinthians chapter number 3 then illustrates they had no reward. You have much bitterness to go about. You'll be a very bitter person. Why? Because you will have no reward. Saved, but no reward. That's why he says their deeds were tested, whether of what sort they were. That's 1 Corinthians chapter number 3. So believers who are living funny lifestyles and all these things. There is a cost to these things. And it is not whether heaven or hell. That's a different topic. Okay? That's a different topic. Go read. He says, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, I've illustrated that verse too much. Now, talking about this particular brother who is saved, but his belief does not reflect. Ne? So if you see a celebrity who is saved, but his behavior does not reflect, think of this verse. Romans chapter number 4, verse number 4. Now, for him that worketh, the reward is not reckoned of grace, but of debt. This means that when a person is a believer and they do good things or they do things that are believer-like, that is not because of grace. That's because that person is a disciple. That one, he will reward you. God will reward that behavior, right behavior. He will reward it not because of grace. So there are rewards of grace. One day, please remind me to talk about that. There are rewards of grace and there are rewards of deeds. Yeah, as a result of what you have done in the kingdom. Okay? Yeah, also, you are saved, you go home, you sleep. Your life does not reflect Christ. The way you raise your kids does not reflect Christ. You are unloving, unforgiving. You speak like the world. It's just a pit of hell. You are a Christian, you keep portraying yourself in lustful manners, causing others to fall or stumble. You do all these things and you are not your brother's keeper. You don't care. How? They must watch themselves. They must watch. Yes, brother's keeper, you are the same as Cain. They haven't told you. It's fine. No problem. The sisterhoods will crucify me. This behavior, when the behavior does not reflect Christ, it will cause you to lose reward. That's why I've said, the reason why I keep talking about the subject matters of people being clear on salvation is because salvation affects what reward you have after. If you think you're doing good is going to get you into heaven, you are unfortunately believing in the wrong thing because you've trusted yourself to get you there. What gets you there is the reward of grace, not reckoned according to your work. He says not of works, lest any man should boast. But anyways, that's a different topic. So Romans chapter number 4 anchors that. It says, now to him that worketh, the reward is not reckoned of grace, but of debt. Meaning God has a reward for it. Ne? I'm going to come to the comments just now. But to him that worketh, kunomzalwane ophila uyayiphila le gospel. You know when they say you are living the gospel, you are like a walking magnet for the gospel. Everywhere where they hear you, they hear the message of grace. You are just a beacon of the beauty of God's work. He addresses that person. He says, now to him that worketh. So remember, verse 4 addresses the one who doesn't work. What is the one that doesn't work? His life doesn't reflect. You're going around, you sleep around, you are an alcoholic, you know that type of a person. You don't work for the kingdom. You are not concerned. A person who does not live in reflection to Christ, to him that worketh not, the reward is not. But to him that worketh not, verse number 5. Okay, Romans 4, verse number 5. But believes on him who justifies the ungodly. Remember, he is ungodly. His faith is counted for righteousness. So that person is saved. But unfortunately, he has no reward. 1 Corinthians 3 then illustrates that in detail. So, Bazalani, so that you will have a reference for what I'm saying there. Eh? So if you see a celebrity, they come, they say they are saved. Great stuff. But then their life does not reflect the life of Christ. What does it come to? It comes to believers who are saved, but their life does not reflect it. Bakhona banjalo. Bakhona banjalo. They are there. That's why you have heard me saying, to the unbeliever, you speak to repentance. To the believer, you speak to righteousness. Why? Because the stature, the standard by which you are, it's high. It's high. So you speak to righteousness. If a believer is doing something wrong, I speak to the righteous aspect of what he's doing wrong. You see a believer who is a money monk, a person who just loves money. You speak towards giving. That's why when Jesus spoke to the rich young ruler, the guy who had a lot of money, Jesus said, give it away. So you let them rest and let them grow. How will you know they are not saved? They will deny it. 1 John chapter number 4, we illustrated that verse. So questioning whether they are not saved, you are the one who's in the wrong. That's why I'm doing this video, so that we become clear on these things. We must not participate in such behavior. When a person says they are saved, we embrace them, we receive them, because if they are faking it, love embracing them can get them in the right position of being saved. You've heard Satanists, witches, sent to try and destroy the church. They come amongst the believers. The overwhelming love causes them conviction. I knew a brother by the name of Ronnie. Ronnie was a Satanist, a hardcore Satanist, in my first year of being saved. Hardcore Satanist. I'm talking about a Satanist. He used to tell you, my brother, I know the power of prayer. Satanist. Blood drinking Satanist. Hardcore. That guy it was written in him, and the church had adopted him and stuff like that and so forth, But he didn't have good discipleship. But you could understand, this guy came from hardcore Satanist, and now he was now in church. He literally almost lived in church. Church started taking him to church, to school and stuff like that. But the guy was hardcore in. It was it was the loving embrace of the church that got him saved. You couldn't get that guy out. It was the church's love. The embrace. He didn't understand it. He thought Satanism was powerful until when he was there, he saw. So what you are likely to do is push them off. Push them out. That's exactly what happened to me. I remember when I went to my mom's church, I found this pastor, only to find that guy was a charlatan, a high-level charlatan, and a hypocrite of all. Guy was a gambler, he was a what, all kinds of things. Guy lived a very shameful life in my viewpoint. For an example, okay, if a person was an example, that would have been a terrible example for a person who follows the gospel. So this guy, when I went to church, my first time in church, I know nothing about the Bible. The guy turned around, looked at me and said, where is John in the Bible? You expect a person who's just coming for the first time to know such a question? Why would you even ask a person you don't know, who's just arriving in church that same day? I'm a hip-hopper there, baggy jeans, everything, long hair. I used to have long hair. Don't be shocked by the boldness. But this guy just asked me, and I said, no, I can't go to this church. I had concluded. But I had explained that I had a girlfriend by the time, and I used to see her on the weekends a lot. So she said, no, Ricardo, I'm not coming to meet you anymore. I want to go to church. Go to church. So because of her, I now started thinking, I can't go. I have to go to church now because she said I must go to church. But so I ended up thinking to myself, the small church is the problem. You see, that church is too small, so you could easily just pick on me. Let me go to a big church. So that's how I ended up at Mount Calvary Church in Berea, in Johannesburg CBD. That's how I ended up there, because it was a big church, 2,000 members. No one knows me. No one will even pay attention to me. It was in that church that I got rooted. That was the first time I heard the gospel properly. The person preached it. Yeah, I said, I believe. And it was not in a big service. It was in a small service. I think there was like 10 people. There was this week during the week services. That's where I got saved. I got saved during a week service, small little service out of the big church. And so when you want to assess a person's thinking, first question, what did they believe? That's why when Cassper was talking about what he believed, I said I absolutely love what he's saying because he is clear on the gospel. You'll hear me saying that in the video when you say he's clear that this life it was not that. It was not happening. This was not what brought him to salvation. He understood the way where he was positioned. It was not because his family was what. He says, my position was wrong. I was going to hell. He's clear on that. Clear as cut day. And so the same way I gave the example with Nyovest. If you listen to the gospel that he was clear on the gospel. Whether he believed it, we'll see as we go. We know now he's baptized and so forth. So we only know when people leave whether they believed it. This subject matter of, hi, this one, angimthembi, that's not how you're supposed to handle it. So, nyankuza bazalwane, sukani lapho. And if you have a pastor that has a tendency of just questioning things like that, be very careful of such things, okay? Yeah, I'm not saying leave your church. Just be careful when he does that, distance yourself from that thought. Why? Because we don't have that. We can't do that. And as a matter of fact, 1 Corinthians chapter number 4, verse number 3 up until 5, it tells you of making a judgment of motives. It tells you that God is the one that judges motives. And so that verse there, 1 Corinthians, then it's also a warning on that. To say, when you are saying that they are here to deceive us, we have doctrine. When they start teaching funny things, we will know, we correct them. When they take the correction, then we know they are in the right path. If bazohamba, if you see people like Abos Koteni, they were in the church, it didn't ascribe to Pan-African, that's when you know you were not a believer, my sister. Kunjalo. Gogo Mercedes, that lady who was on Gogo's Koteni, you listen to her teachings about what took her to Ubungoma. It was not hardship of life. She just loved the fancy life that could be afforded by that. She's very clear. She was a person of church, but she liked that. She went there. Clear. You were not a part. So, Bazalani, the problem is that it's either people claim people and they feel like saying, oh yeah, a person came to and said they were a believer and then we saw them doing this. They feel like it should make them feel bad. No. You'll remember when 2020, there was a brother that came out and he boldly then came out and he was clear on what was wrong, what was right, and all those things. And I said, yes, we receive you. When he changed up and we say, leadership, your teaching is now dodgy, man. It's now offline. That's our duty. That's what. But this thing of questioning, they're here to deceive. Well, if they are deceiving, we will know by what they teach. Relax. It's not your place to be questioning whether they are saved and all those type of things. It's Satanism. You will know if it's Satanism. Okay? He tells you only know when they leave. He says they live so that it may be made manifest. The word that First John uses is that it may be made manifest. So, Bazalani, I wanted to do this video so that we are clear on that. Okay? We mustn't partake in that. Me, when a person comes out, they say they are receiving the message of the gospel, embrace with everything in me. It will never change. It is what I would have wanted for me when I was new in the church. Okay? When I was new in the church, I was very rusty. It's very, very rusty. It's only when you now get into church, other believers see you listening to hip hop and they're like, my brother, be careful of these things, be careful of these messages and stuff like that. Let me tell you how I got away from a lot of worldly entertainment. It was a person would highlight one thing. The thing that got me off a lot of hip hop thing, there's a lot of nonsense there. Right? It was when people started to highlight the satanic messaging inside there, and then the destructive nature of hip hop and all those things. Those are the things that kind of, okay, now I can see it now. the self-destructiveness, the beef and all these things that are just not good, not a good symbol of good morals. Those are the things that got me off. It was not all these things of, hey, this person had what, he had the star, he had the pyramid. No, because people said that about Jay-Z for a very long time. You see, he does this because he's a Freemason. If he did this because he was a Freemason, why was he sued for doing that sign? You will notice that he doesn't do that sign anymore. But you see that part, the conspiracy theorists won't tell you that. If he was doing that sign because he was a Freemason, and you see it's the diamond, you see the diamond is its illumination. You see he did the blueprint 1, blueprint 2, blueprint 3, and he did this blueprint albums because he was signifying his maturity in the first and the second and the third degree in Freemasonry. That's very dodgy. You remember there was videos that were made about that, and the person was trying to illustrate that Jay-Z had just qualified. Listen, when you are in the first degrees of Freemasonry, you know the list. You know nothing. At that point, you know nothing. So to have said or to have thought that, oh no, Jay-Z was graduating in Freemasonry, so that's why he was speaking about first degree. No, my brother. You know the list in those first 3 degrees. It's only when you get above the 6th, 7th, 8th degree, that's when you now get introduced to very diabolic rituals and very diabolic things. In the very entry, you know the list. It's just an embrace of a different God, an embrace of ecumenical ideas and all those type of things. And so I wanted us to just let's get away from conspiracy theorists. People come, they say they are saved, embrace. Love can bring people to salvation. So embrace them. When they start teaching others, we correct them. The problem that I have with people that say, just be skeptical, they are the very same people that if these people then reject, they say, you see your problem. No. We have a biblical narrative that would have helped us to navigate. He says they leave because they were never apart. But when you are now questioning when the person is just coming in, what's going on? Black Coffee just went through an accident recently. It makes sense why a person would be in a position where he's really thinking about life at that level. It's just that simple. Okay? And so sometimes we question people on things that are very easy. They are kingdom. In reality, you are an agent. Tony, leadership. I saw your comment there. Thank you very much, my brother. The Bible, my brother, it is playing a big role in my life. Thank you, leadership. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all be good. Taka says, love your work. Thank you, leadership. So I wanted to do that. Let's be very careful of worldly agendas. There are people that just want to paint Hollywood a certain way. Okay? There are people who are in Hollywood because of talent. Purely talent. It's not even Illuminati. Only when they get to a certain level, it becomes that. Okay? People have done. There's a video that I actually want to do I want to use to highlight that. Okay? People put agendas. This person there's an agenda, there was an agenda. And when you look at it, there's no agenda. It's absolutely no agenda. The person is talented or they are placed there because they embrace a certain image and stuff like that. So I will make a separate video about that. Why some of the people that are accredited to be part of some satanic order, it's not even that they are part of a satanic order. I gave that example with, what's her name? Miley Cyrus and Britney Spears. These two people were used. Okay, my lights just came back. These two people were used to embrace a certain idea. And as they grew, that agenda became very clear. It was diabolic. They then started to stray away from it. Like the whole thing where Britney Spears cut her hair. It was because they were trying to embrace this idea of blonde girls, blonde talented girls. And they painted her that way. It's just that. So how does she stray away from that? Of course, her career was used for a lot of agendas to portray certain agendas. There was a period where she was made to portray the 666 sign and all that entire thing. There is all of that. After they have become successful, because they know then they won't say no because they want to keep the image, right? And they threaten you to say, hey, if you don't do, we'll just backside you put you to the side. So to keep it, they then subscribe. You will see it also with Katy Perry, person who was clearly a Christian artist, straight up. Okay, talented, but unfortunately could not. That's a person who has sold themselves. She says it herself. I sold my soul to the devil, because she knew what she was trying to look for. So for a lot of these things, it's not even that. Kanye West is an example of that. If they were using Kanye West for the devil, it was Kanye West had been in the industry long before he got signed for his own talent. Why didn't they sign him all along if they had an agenda? It was talent that got him in. It was talent that got him a deal. But as he grew, the arrogance of the position that he was in, and then the wealth, and then when he was up there, they dangled it, he took it. And then later on, he then confessed it. Said, you see, they killed my mother. You remember that entire thing that he did? Yeah, it's because at a certain level, there was something here to give. We are clear about that. But there is this thing of saying everybody that's in the industry is because of, it's not true. It's not true. Everybody is Illuminati. Let's be very careful with things like that. Because now you hear people like all this, what's her name? Master's Voice. Everybody to her is a Mason. Everybody's nonsense. That's contrary to the founding pages of the Illuminati and the Freemasons. Not everybody can become that. Not everybody. Those were meant to be secret organizations to pull out other sub-organizations in order for people to portray the Luciferian teaching. Okay, but we'll talk about that on a different video. I want to make a small video about that to illustrate the careers of people, to highlight this person's career started a trajectory and it got to this level. For Chris Brown, it was, they used the Rihanna situation. Very clear in his career. Even there was a period where he started saying that. Okay? They tried to ruin him and what. But when he started, there was nothing like that. It was talent that got him in. But then there was an agenda behind him, even when he got in. You'll remember Chris Brown's lyrics in the early years or in his first album, even when he was still a teenager, they were very sexually written, showing that the agenda, then they started using his image to portray that entire thing. Then later on, he embraced it himself. That's why the case of Rihanna just went, and then they were separated. It's not that they separated. They were separated. Those people didn't separate voluntarily. They were separated. The industry, they orchestrated it. It was orchestrated. It's very clear in their thing that they were separated in order to create. Why? Because they couldn't have another power couple. They were supposed to be a certain power couple. The two of them were spelling to be that. They separated them, and they used the case to do that. And then he embraced it by himself. When you listen to the album where he released The Fallen Angel, clear embrace of Satan. Clear embrace. I've highlighted that on a different video. But again, as I've said, we mustn't let the world dictate our embrace of love. We mustn't do that. Okay? When these people come, they come close to us. You know, that's why the whole thing, Eminem started singing about Christianity. There was a period, I think it was in recovery. Isn't it funny that he went under addiction? And then when he's coming out, he starts speaking about God. Then there was a massive voice about things. And then before you knew it, the world started dictating for us what we must believe. They started saying, but you see, he was singing about this, he was singing about this. And then before you knew it, he subsided. But even in his recent albums, he still does sing about it. He still does have a bit of God here, a bit of God here. And we might not agree with it. But it's very clear there are periods when these people have a dealing with Satan and God. Clear as day. And so we mustn't let the world dictate for us on embracing people when they come to salvation. We don't question people's salvation. No, we don't do that. I forget that the microphone is here. So y'all have a good one. Thank you very much. I'll see you on later on. Wanted to make that video. We embrace them. If they are not saved, if they are fake, they will leave. Church is very difficult. Church, it's not easy. They will leave. The Bible says it very clearly. If they are not of us, they will leave. And so until then, let's not embrace worldly ideas which are not based on the Bible. That's why on the stream, I presented you with verses on trajectory, how to think around this subject all the way through. So rewind if you're just coming in so you can watch that part. It's Ricky. Thank you very much. Highly appreciate you.